clear, but Kenya, it's night, so don't worry about that.
We are live now. Let me check in with viewers. Hello, everybody. We are live. It's so weird because we can't see anybody. Okay. Let me just make sure really quickly. I'm going to check in with someone to make sure that people can actually see us.
Okay.
Right now it says 0 viewers. Okay.
Yes.
I also have to.
Let me post it.
Okay, we have one viewer.
Let me tweet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to tweet it out right now. Hi, viewers. We have 2 viewers. Okay.
Hey, guys. Black Panther's so lit.
Black Panther. I should have worn my necklace for this, actually.
You should have. You know, I'm actually going to see the movie. I found out they had the film in 4D. And so the next time I see it will be in 4D.
What does 4D mean?
4D is when like the seats move, like they have different elements, like water may spray on you, or let's say wind may blow past you. It's kind of like an experience if you were at Universal Studios.
Oh my gosh, I want to go only in LA.
They have a 4D theater. Yeah, so that's going to be the next experience for me.
Wow, okay. So let me tweet this. Guys, we are coming. We see you guys joining us. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm eating rice.
So
Hashtag Black Panther. Hashtag Wakanda Forever.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to wait for a few more people to join.
Okay.
Okay. All righty, because I also need to figure out, I can't see the chat box. Okay, this is our group chat. All right, I'm going to pull this up on my phone. So I'm wondering, how can we get, people might have to go to Twitter to send us questions. Okay. All right, 6 viewers. We're gonna wait a few more minutes. Okay, so we're here. You can see us. Okay, so I think for people to ask questions, they're gonna have to do it on
Twitter?
Twitter, yeah, because I can't sign in. I can't figure out how to ask questions on here. Okay. Okay, so no, I can see it. Okay, cool. All righty. I can see it. Okay, you guys, are you ready to get started?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, bro. Let's do this.
Let's go.
Yeah, well. Okay, let me do a little Insta story. All right, it's like Inception. It's social media inside of social media. We are here live on YouTube now. We're gonna hop into this discussion of Black Panther. Go to my previous story to swipe up for the link. All righty. Let's go. Okay, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Jessica Nabongo, also known as the Catch Me If You Can. Thank you so much for joining us today in our conversation about Black Panther, the film. I am joined by James Bland, the filmmaker extraordinaire who is in Los Angeles at the moment. And I am also joined by Kwena Baloyi, who is tuning in from Nairobi, where it is 8:35 p.m. So very far from each other. I'm also in LA, actually. So super excited to dig in. I have now seen Black Panther twice. Although James just told me about a 4D experience, so I'm probably gonna have to go and see it a third time.
Yeah.
But I just want to start by saying I love the movie. Kind of forever. But yeah, like I love the film. I think, you know, I'm so glad that we all showed up and showed out at the box office. It's killing records. It shows that even if it's a fully Black cast and it's not about slavery or oppression, that we can sell out these theaters. So super excited about that. And obviously I love all of the, you know, the Africanness in the movie. So I'm going to throw it to you, James. Share your initial thoughts, if you would.
Yeah, so I've been super excited about this film. I want to say for the past 2 years, since I heard that the film was actually being made. I personally loved it, like absolutely loved the film. I've been a big fan of Coogler since Fruitvale Station. I thought Creed was great, and so I had really high expectations. And he did not disappoint. I'm also a big fan of most of the cast. Like Lupita is one of my favorites. Michael B. Jordan has been one of my favorites. Sterling K. Brown, like if he's not your favorite, what are you doing? And so I just think overall the film really erased the bar, not only from a business perspective in terms of what it's doing in the box office, but also just from a visual and just an overall essence of Black pride, of Black unity, of Black exploration and celebration. Yeah, I think it also really made me dive a little bit deeper into my conscience in terms of really thinking about what I'm creating next as a filmmaker.
Amazing. And Kwena?
Hi, everybody. Molweni, dumela. Abusheni, all these greetings, Jambo, you know, Sas and all that. So I went again today to watch the movie as well, and because first I went with so many expectations and they were not met. They were met after a couple of days. So I went again today, and it was an escape. It was a huge celebration of Blackness in so many areas because, as all you know, we have two divisions that we're going to speak about later. We've got Africans and African Americans. So it's celebration for both, and I'm so proud of our people. I'm proud of this film. I was shouting today in the cinema alone because friends like, girl, you're making noise. And I'm like, I miss South Africa. I need to get home where everybody is not scared to shout, hey, when it's hey time, not scared to shout no when it's no time. So you know what? This film, it's everything that we've been waiting for. It's everything that we've been doing, but we've been waiting for the platform to be brought to us because, you know, we need those kind of people to share and do this kind of things for us because not everybody is capable of achieving this kind of awareness, you know, making awareness of our Blackness, our greatness, our capabilities. You know, Black Panther is a show off, basically.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's dive in. And for the people who are joining us, if you want to ask us a question, go onto Twitter and use hashtag Catch Me in Conversation. That's how we're going to sort of keep track Sorry about the text. I can't figure out how to mute them on my computer, but so everybody don't text me. Anyway, all right, so let's dive in. Okay, the first thing I want to know is who was your favorite character or your top 3 favorite characters?
Ooh. Okay, who's going first?
I'm going first.
Okay, go.
So, Killmonger was my favorite, right?
Okay.
Killmonger, oh my God. Killmonger reminds me a lot of EFF. I don't know if you guys know our political party called EFF. In South Africa, the ones that wear red berets. Have you guys heard about them? EFF.
Are they similar to the Black Panthers in the US?
No. It's just a political party that is led by a young leader and it's called EFF. It's the one that's making ANC run for their money most of the time. It's the one that's making ANC make best decisions most of the time because somehow they're not afraid to share the truth. They're not afraid to say what's right, what's wrong. Even when they're doing it the wrong way, but most of the time, I love their courage. So I love this man's courage. You know, he reminds me of how African American were not colonized and we here in Africa were colonized. So he comes as understanding in a way how colonization means. I don't know if that makes sense. I guess later, but he's one of my favorite because he's kind of stirring a whole lot of conversations around, are you scared? Around how much our people paid for what they've done. Have they paid fair price for everything? And he's asking who? Colonizers. So he's mostly one of my favorite. And of course, Mbaku. Mbaku, he's my number one hero. He made sure that the white man does not speak in his house.
Yes.
I'm like here for Mbaku. I'm voting for him every day. I want to chat to him every day because we in South Africa, as Jessica will know and maybe give a testimony, is we struggle every day with colonies. And Mbaku came and he brought up this thing that who, not in my house. I'll feed you. And luckily we are vegetarians in the house. So you know what? I'll come back to this later, but so far, these two, besides our beautiful women, our beautiful warriors, but these two men right here sparked a lot. I'll speak about my other ladies that I adore so much, but so far, these two men have sparked a lot that we're fighting for every day in South Africa as young, black, and talented people.
Well, since you took the men, I'll take the women. I would definitely say Okoye. Am I pronouncing that right? Was definitely one of my favorite characters. She was just badass, like all around. And in addition to the fact of her being just gorgeous, I love the bald head and being able to offer a different representation of beauty. I love what she represented in terms of that fierce commitment and dedication to country. And I look at it, say it again.
And loyalty.
Yes, loyalty. And she was willing to.
Oh, we lost him.
Come back, James.
We lost James.
We cannot be losing James while he's speaking about my general, guys. You know, my general guys. Yeah, okay, I'll take over James while we're waiting for him to come back. You know, I love how my general was not afraid to question the king. She was not afraid, even if she was loyal, she was not afraid to say, you are a bad king. And you know what? In a way, I will protect you, but you must know that you will pay for what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I love that she fought him at the end. Hi, James,
Yes.
come back. I was taking over
Okay, I'm
today.
back. Okay.
she was taking over to talk about her general. But go ahead.
Okay, go.
No,
Can you
James,
hear
go
me?
ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, and then also when she took that wig off and she threw it at oh boy, that was one of my favorite moments because we have not seen that style of fighting from any, in any film. But that is such a Black girl move.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
That
it's
is a Black girl move.
it's so I absolutely love that part. And it's funny because I was reading an article in or maybe it was a tweet, I don't know, but the guy was saying what he appreciated about this movie is that the women were wearing combat appropriate shoes. So never wearing like high heels and all that nonsense. They're actually like there to fight. But the one thing that I noticed in the first time I saw it and this time is when they're in Korea and Lupita is driving, she doesn't have shoes on.
Oh yeah.
And I so often drive without shoes on, and I was like, yes.
Did you guys see that that video that Ryan Coogler did where he broke down the whole fight sequence in South Korea? The Korean scene is so dope, even down to the actual wardrobe that T'Challa, Nakia, and Okoye wore. The red, the green, and the black, and how he broke down even their fighting styles. And while Nakia, you'll never see her with a weapon or a gun, and how to T'Challa, it was important to also show his superpower and super strength. And so each of them had a very different style of fighting, which was really cool.
Yeah, no, it was really amazing. Also, Jess, Lupita's part where she took off the heel, I was like, yes, girl, that's how a Black woman does things. That's how a Black fights, man. We take a pot, we take anything. You know what? We pull your weave, man. We take, we use our bags. We use everything to get what we want, or we achieve something. So that
Mm-hmm.
was. I also watched Ryan's interpretation of colors and those fights. That was really beautiful.
Yes, it
I
was.
him sharing that with us because it
Definitely.
gives us more light. It gives us more light. I'll speak about his experience when we're coming to point number 4. But otherwise, I really appreciate all his effort in terms of bringing us together onto the table, a seat on his table. I really,
Yes.
really love it. Yeah.
Yes.
And really quickly, for me, my favorite character, I have 3 favorite characters. Of course, Okoye, who I'm completely obsessed with. And if she does not only does she need to be nominated for an Oscar, she must take it home. And if that doesn't happen, we're going to burn down the Academy. Okay?
I'm coming there, bruh.
Yes. She has to win. I mean, I just think her acting was just phenomenal in the movie. And I think she showed a great range. She had her lover who then she had to, stick that sword in front of him, or the spear in front of him. So I think she just showed amazing range. She was funny in the film. She was strong. She was powerful. So I loved her. Shuri, we haven't talked about Shuri yet.
Oh, everyone says I know. I'm like Shuri, babe.
She, obviously she was hilarious. She was comic relief, but just to have this image of a young Black girl on the big screen who's a scientist, like that's incredible. It was her science that gave T'Challa his amazing costume or whatever, and which, had all the superpowers or whatever. But just her lab, the fact that she's able to save people, I think that's just such an amazing image, and it's going to be so great for so many little Black girls around the entire world to think like, oh, I can be a scientist,
Yeah. I love also how she was an innovator. She was also very intelligent for her age. That I appreciate so much, that whatever you say or you want to bring on the table is actually very, very valid. Going back to when Lupita said your dreams are very valid. So innovating, all of us can innovate. Just don't be scared. You just have to do it. You just have to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
And lastly, Mbaku. And that man, I said, okay, yes, I loved him. I mean,
Yeah, your nerves bad, Jessica.
my nerves were so bad. I mean, because in the beginning when he challenged him, I was like, wait, hold on, who is this Nigerian all over here challenging him? But then I was like, okay, when he came through in the end, and he's so funny, and he kept the colonizer in his place, and I loved every single second of it. Yes. All right, so let's dive into our first major theme. So the first thing I want to talk about is Killmonger, because everyone that I've talked to has had thoughts on him. I think his character for African Americans is viewed one way. I think for Africans on the continent is viewed a different way. And I think even for Africans in the diaspora, he's also viewed a different way. So the reason that I brought the three of us specifically together for this conversation is because each of us represents these different types of people. So James is representing African Americans, I'm representing Africans in the diaspora, and Kwena is representing Africans on the continent. So I really am super keen to dig into this conversation on Killmonger.
Mm-hmm. Who's gonna kick it off?
Me.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think somehow I relate a lot with him because most of the stuff that he does is sparked by anger.
Mm-hmm.
He's very angry. He's an angry man, and most of us, I'm sure, we can relate to him as Africans here at home. That most of the stuff we do because our parents sacrificed a lot. Our great grandparents did a lot for us. So we fight so hard to actually get the knowledge so that we're able to fight back. But then I just love he's very knowledgeable on so many things. He just don't go to war without knowledge. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually inspired by his knowledge around the things he go for, and I love his courage on knowing what he wants. And I really, really appreciate his anger. And you know what? The thing is, one thing that we must realize is the relationship between him and his father. When they gave him the purple thing to drink for to become a king, he actually connected with his father, and you can see the conversation they used to have. If you can go back to that scene, you'll see how the father used to tell him stories about home. That's when I'm saying he also represents us and represent you guys as well, because most of you guys, you have parents that tells you stories about home, but you haven't been home.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I love is he actually researched about home and kept wanting to find out about this home that his dad used to tell him about. And one thing that we don't have, most of us as Africans, is relationships between our fathers. Mm-hmm. So I will leave it there for now.
Mm. Jessica.
Interesting, Jay. Oh,
putting it in front of you.
You there?
Yeah, I think for me, I found Killmonger to be, I don't know. I mean, I think like, who was it? I think it was T'Challa who said that Killmonger was a monster of our own creation. And I think that was true, right? Because his father went there, he killed his father. This little boy goes and finds his father dead with these, these panther claws in his chest. And so while I found him, obviously he's the villain, he felt like a villain, but it was almost like you could understand where he was coming from. And so in a way, you almost feel sorry for him. But then towards the end, you're kind of like, oh, we can't fix you because you're a sociopath.
Exactly.
So I kind of felt like, oh, I'm really sorry this little boy was abandoned by his family. Now he's so angry. But then I'm like, you're an actual sociopath. And I will say, because a lot of people were like, oh my God, why did they let him die? And they saved the white man. But when I watched it the second time, T'Challa said, we can save you. And
Yeah, yeah,
and that's when he says the very famous line where he says, "No, bury me in the ocean with my ancestors because they knew that death was better than bondage."
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, I recognize why he was the way he was, but also he was just a sociopath who I think was beyond reproach.
Got it. So I like to think that there were no villains, at least no black villains in Black Panther. So to me, Killmonger wasn't necessarily a villain. He was definitely, I think every character was fighting for something. And granted, in the, I guess, the stereotypical or even maybe the traditional idea of the villain or the antagonist in a film, Killmonger was definitely that. But when I look at it from like a societal perspective, and if I wanted to like pinpoint Killmonger as you know, someone within our society and our different viewpoints, we can relate him to like Malcolm X or the Black Panther Party, who had a more militant, you know, approach at bringing about change. But I think because at the core of him, he wanted to free his people. He wanted to bring liberation to the African diaspora, you know, across the globe. His methods and his approach about going about it was different, and you know, some could argue, you know, not the right way. He was willing to kill for it, but to me, he was just a guy who was he was very hurt, and he was a victim of his circumstances, like so many of us. And in particular, when you look at African Americans who grow up in poor neighborhoods, similar to Killmonger growing up in Oakland and not having his father around, he became a victim, in my opinion, of his circumstance in terms of him, in terms of the anger at which he possessed, was rooted in, you know, him not having a dad, probably growing up in a poor neighborhood, and really him having to battle the system and wishing that he had a better outcome or he had a better upbringing. And so as a result, and then you go out and you travel the world. So I think they said he went to the military.
Yeah.
And so you travel the world and then you get the opportunity to see how other folks are living. Then you learn that your people are kings and queens and have all of this technology and wealth, and that you were left behind. Um, and oftentimes, you know, how I felt, you know, traveling and seeing, you know, folks in third world countries, and you kind of ask, you know, has God forgotten them, or why are we able to live, you know, so much better? And is there anything, you know, we can do to help? And so to me, you know, he wasn't a villain. I don't want to villainize him. But he was just, you know, another character in the film who was fighting for what he believed was right. And I think all of the characters were fighting for what they believed was right in the film.
Yeah, you know, he also reminds me of he's so much craving and wanting all of his identity.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to belong. You can see he's fighting so hard. That's why he even went back, because he wanted to belong, but because of his anger, he's doing it the wrong way. That's why
Mm-hmm.
Jessica saying he's actually a psychopath. But you can see we have a lot of those people that their souls are just lingering around because they don't know who they are. Because if you remember, there's one of the scene where tell me who you are. He actually knows who he is because of the relationship he had with his father before his father
Mm-hmm.
left him. So
Mm-hmm.
now you can see he's got a bit of who he is, but he wants it all now. But now, because he's been deprived of the opportunity to belong and get full identity of himself, he wants it all, and he wants it by force, which is what we see here back at home. And it's actually, I really, really love how they narrated this story, because most of it, they got it right. And
Mm-hmm.
also, he reminds me of what's happening in our politics and our tribes culturally. The king wants this president wants this politician party wants this. And now you look at the king and you look at Killmonger, what he wants. You look at Mbaku, what Mbaku wants. So is this three people, they all want the same thing. They want to rule. And you go back home, you look at this political party, you look at this tribe, you look at these cultures, they're all fighting for that. And you're like, oh my God, they're actually getting it right. We relating, but what are we fighting for? Are we fighting for belonging because we've been lost? Remember, most of us, we're still fighting for our identity to be brought back to us. They took it back, the colonies. They proper took it back. So Killmonger reminds me a lot of my fight every day. So that's why I respect, and I'm actually following his story more and more, because I'm thinking, damn, man, you want to belong. But my friend, you're doing it the wrong way. Same as the people on the street that I meet every day. They're so angry, but I feel like it's high time we take our anger and turn it into something great. Unlike turning into actually just mixing up our culture and killing each other and making us forget of where we come from.
Yeah. So I want to jump in. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that Killmonger's, his quest was noble. Like what he wanted was noble. It was right. It was okay. You want to help Africans around the world with the wealth, technology, and weapons that were in Wakanda. And I think, because you mentioned Malcolm X and the Black Panthers, and I think the difference between Killmonger and those entities is that he was willing to kill indiscriminately. And the Black Panthers nor Malcolm X ever were of that mindset. They were of defending yourself. So not going and launching an all-out war. So I agree with what he wanted to do, but obviously the method was not great. So what I wanted to jump into now, building on this conversation around Killmonger, is the relationship between Africans and African Americans. And I love that, Kwena, you're talking about this feeling of belonging, because I know for a lot of Black Americans, you know, there's this desire to find home, to get back to Africa. I know now 23andMe is very big, where everyone is doing this DNA testing to figure out where they're coming from. Many people are finding out they're Nigerian or from Benin, Togo, like, well, obviously the Western African region in general. So let's talk about the relationship between African and African Americans and how this movie sort of discusses that without obviously discussing it in words, but bringing Killmonger in as, even though James doesn't think he was a villain, but you know, he's villainized in this movie, whereas the Africans are regal, they're powerful, they're wise, and things like that. So how did you guys see that relationship played out on the big screen?
Yeah, it didn't bother me, personally. I did read a few think pieces and a few Facebook, statuses in particular saying or pointing out that was problematic. In my opinion, this film was based in, this was about Wakanda, and so we lived, more in the world of on the continent, and granted, we really didn't have, that many African Americans in the film. And, Killmonger, I guess, was that representation. But because he was also the villain, I kind of felt like it wasn't an intentional jab, at African Americans to make that separation in terms of, Africans on the continent are better than African Americans. But there definitely is a disconnect. And there definitely is a divide that I've experienced even from my first generation, African friends, and this idea that almost like we're not invited to the party, that we can't be included because we're not really from the continent. We're just, in particular, when you look at just cultural appropriation like that, those things and those arguments always kind of boggle my mind and confuse me. But I think because we did not have such a large representation of African Americans in the film, that perhaps it wasn't as intentional as some people are trying to make it.
Yeah, I just want to, and then I'll let Kwena go. I think it's interesting. So as an African in the diaspora, like I'm Ugandan, I was born in Detroit. Everyone knew growing up that I was African, clearly. And African Americans would call me things such as African booty scratcher, which I still never got to the bottom of it and why Africans are booty scratchers. But all of my African friends who grew up in the US know this thing very well, that we are African
booty scratchers.
There's always, you know, for me, there was always the disconnect between me and Black Americans. And I was born in the US, you know, just because I'm African, there was that disconnect, and not for sure from my parents. Specifically, my father was very clear about making that separation known between us and African Americans. But I mean, in terms of me, myself, it was isolating for me to have people call me out because of my heritage, you know? So, and I mean, I understand there is a history, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of ignorance on both sides, but that's definitely there. So I'm going to throw it to Kwena, but one thing I just want to say for the people who are watching us, if you have a question, because we're going to take questions from the audience in about 15 minutes. So please hop on Twitter and ask your question using the hashtag #CatchMeInConversation, because we definitely want to capture some of your questions. If you don't have Twitter, you can email your question to info@thecatchmeifyoucan.com. All right, Kwena?
Okay, so how I found this film as well, because I've been discovering a whole lot of stuff from this film every day. It's actually giving me a lot to think of, because we've been Wakandering each and every day. Like I said, this is we appreciate this platform a lot, because it's just showing off what we've been working on and doing every day. So it's actually super good. But then between us, I think this film is a vision of what can be possible to the two of us if we come together.
Yes.
And I'm also saying it's time y'all come home. You know? Because there's definitely a division, a huge division of us. And I think we so mad at each other, because sometimes we think you guys are a bit of high class, you better Africans, and we lower class Africans, in a way that every time when we get to be represented, y'all over there, you think you know Africa better. You represent it in a way that you haven't even been here. You know, I think that's the thing we have against each other. That you guys, you talk about Africa as if you've been here. You represent Africa as if you've been here and tasted Wakanda, but you actually haven't. So that's where we come in mad. And that's where the division comes in. We're like, okay, actually, there's no unity between us. And I'm thinking, will there ever be unity between us? Because, I mean, even now, if you look at it, we didn't have a huge premiere in Africa. But that time, this thing is celebrating Blacks, and it's celebrating our cultures that are here in Africa, you know? So I feel like we love you guys, we appreciate, but every day you adding more into our plate of getting mad that, you know what, we see your work, man. You're working for us, you're showing off for us, but can you come home? Can you come this side and actually taste what you're talking about? Can you come and be proud at what you guys are preaching over there? You haven't even been here for a premiere. I mean, I can say the South African visit was a premiere. We deserve a whole cast here. I don't care which country they could have chosen, but for me, I'm like, you keep building bridges to divide us when you do things like this. Yes, you're representing us. Yes, you're celebrating everything. But have you been into the situations? Have you been here? I'm like, you know what? It's just getting tougher and tougher, because y'all are flocking this side each month, each year. And when you get this side, you still want to act better. You still want to act like, okay, we got money, you know. You still disrespect us in a way that you know better. And it hurts us a lot. I mean, it happens every day in our industry, where we see all these amazing people that we adore. They come here and they want to take advantage of what we know. They want to take advantage of who we are, and they want to own who we are. They don't even have an idea. So for me, I just pray every day that Guys, I mean, will we ever have the unity? Will we ever build something that will somehow shift the division that we have among each other?
Yeah,
Yeah, great points.
I agree. I was incredibly disappointed to see that the entire cast didn't show up in Johannesburg or Nairobi or anywhere, to your point, anywhere. Choose. There's 54 countries for them to choose from. They could have done
Exactly.
it anywhere. But meanwhile, they show up in Seoul, they show up in London, they show up in New York, they show up in LA, whatever. And now I understand that people have schedules, people have families and things of that nature. But I am sorry. I think, we all make time for things that are important to us. And these are people who have access to private jets. And I just feel like if they really, really wanted to, they could have went for like 6 or 7 hours and hopped back on a plane and went back wherever they needed to go. And so what I think for me, this movie has sort of brought about is this obsession with African culture and like the consumption of Africanness, but still leaving Africans on the continent out of that. What I will say, I love that everybody is showing up to the movie theaters, and because this is cosplay, which some people are like, why are people dressing like this? Is cosplay, right? Like when white people go to see Star Wars, they dress up like everything. And so that's just what's happening with this movie. And I think that's incredible. But I think there's a consumption happening without further research and without an interest for like a deeper knowledge. I still, even just 2 days ago, I literally saw a comment where someone was like, Africa is such a beautiful country. And the problem is that we talk about Africa, Africa, Africa. And I mean, obviously I recognize that there's many, many similarities between the countries. They're all on the same continent, but Africa is so diverse. There are 3,000 tribes in Africa, over 3,000. There are more than 2,000 languages on the continent. And, that people need to dig deeper. And I hope that this movie, it sparked a lot of interest, and I hope that it helps people dig deeper. And in fact, I wrote an article, shameless plug, but I wrote an article where I identified some of the tribes that were represented in the movie, because the movie did represent real life African tribes. Zulu was represented, Xhosa was represented, Maasai, Ndebele, as well as Himba, and there were more tribes represented. And so within that article, not only was I saying, hey, these are some of the tribes, but also saying, hey, and these are the countries where these tribes live. Go and visit them, because it is time for people to go and explore Africa, not to visit orphanages or to do volunteer work, but to go, to engage, to eat the food, to meet people, to hang out, to dance, to party, to fall in love with the continent, and not in a patronizing way of going for charity. So I hope we can start to see more and more of that, where people are just traveling to Africa for tourism.
I totally agree. And I hope that this film definitely sparks a greater interest, in particular of African Americans actually venturing home, because I think that is something that we all, should definitely take the trip to Mecca, at some point in our lives. But, in addition to that, and, there was a comment made in terms of us, it's time for us to come home. I think also the difficult part is a lot of African Americans can't pinpoint where home is. And so we know that it's a continent, and it's a really large continent. However, we can't pinpoint the specific country or the specific tribe. And so I think for some, there is a feeling of a disconnect. And then I know also media has played a huge role in terms of painting the continent in a way that it does not feel like a vacation destination, that is painted in a way where we feel the only thing that we can do is to go and volunteer, because we don't get to see the opulence or the beauty, of Africa often, in media. And so I hope that through the work that Jessica's doing and the work that I think across just across social media, as this whole Black and Abroad trend and this whole movement of Blacks in particular African Americans starting to travel more, because traditionally we've been viewed as, or maybe not even viewed, but it's maybe been a fact that we don't travel as much. But, you know, our generation, in particular millennials, are starting to break that. And we're actually, you know, going home and visiting multiple countries in Africa. And I hope that we're also playing our part in dispelling the myth that the continent is not a beautiful utopia.
Okay, so thinking about beautiful utopias. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, this film was mostly created for um, Pan African. As Ryan described all the colors, because most of them they're from our flags, and they celebrating a lot of cultures, as you mentioned, Jazz. That there's Himbas, there's Sutus, there's Zulus, there's Xhosas, there's Masais. So for me, when I say sometimes just pack up your bags and come home, you can just, I mean, film has got so many cultures. Just pick one, James. Pick one.
Just pick one.
Pick one and come through, man.
Yes, just pull up.
Welcome, by the way, we're very welcoming if you know your story. If you know your
Yes.
story, very welcoming, and we'll take you through everything for you to get it right. And also, I listened to Ryan's podcast regarding this movie, and one thing that made me understand that African Americans, they still fighting to find their identity and belong. He mentioned that this film is very personal to him, and how
Mm-hmm.
he wrote and how he pitched to Marvel. It was quite personal. He came to South Africa, he went to Lesotho, he went to Cape Town, and then he stayed a bit in Nairobi. So for me, I'm like, he's just fighting also to close the bridge between the two of us and this whole division. He's trying. You know, one thing I give to him and I respect is he came through. He
Yes.
came through to search, to research, to understand what he's writing about, to understand what he's talking about, even if he didn't stay that long. But I really, really give it to him that he actually longed to come and see the people he's talking about, to come and witness what they eat, the celebrations that they do, rituals that you guys actually do over there without a meaning. This side, actually, they have a deeper meaning. For me, I found that very, very spiritual, and I give that to him. And hopefully, he comes back to find out more about everything he did in that film, because there's a lot that we're trying to unpack. I mean, it's a film, after all, it's a story being narrated. We can't kill him for not including everybody, or for not unpacking every story in detail. But I really, really give it to him for
Yeah.
trying to even come here, man, trying to even meet the people that he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying, guys. Pick a culture. Ryan open a path for you. He
Yes.
opened something for you. You must just pick one and come through, man.
Right.
I think
I
I think
love
Yeah.
it.
the doors are open. I just want to say again, for those of us who are joining us, I can see that you guys are there. So please, if you have a question to ask us, please either email it to info@thecatchmeifyoucan.com or tweet me at the CMIYC, or using the hashtag #CatchMeInConversation. We want to dive into some questions soon. So please, please, please send us some questions. All right. So speaking of Wakanda and Utopia, do you guys want to move to Wakanda? Or are you like,
I'm
I'm
down.
Wakanda. I'm Wakanda. James, I'm sorry. I'm Wakanda, man. I'm like, I'm here. I'm here fighting every day for my people to understand their damn names. Let's start with their names. To actually appreciate and tell people what their names means. To actually not create fake names, but tell people what the name their parents gave them, the names their parents gave them. Because for me, I'm like, guys, hey, come on. I mean, Okanda is everywhere. It's in us.
Mm-hmm.
It's oh my God, Wakanda is a lot. And for me, I struggle to even say it's new. For me, it's just that window or that door I've been waiting for just to open so that people can see it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 No,
Yeah.
I agree. I think Wakanda is it's a feeling. I think it's a
Yeah.
spirit. I think it's something that's gonna dwell amongst us. and it won't and it actually is a destination. It
Yeah,
may not be a geographical destination, but I think it's a destination for us to realize the burning of these bridges that divide us, or the building of the bridges that connect us, or seeing more just African Americans in particular travel, to the continent and come home, and also us figuring out ways to help to support and build up the continent so that you guys can capitalize on the natural resources that are in the land, and really taking the story points in the film, and hopefully they'll inspire us in some type of way that we can actually apply similar types of changes, in real life. Like I remember when I was in Ghana and I was having a conversation with actually a white Canadian who had moved to Ghana to farm the cocoa bean, and he had figured out how to take the shell from the cocoa bean and turn it into some type of chemical or something that is used in like plastics and a bunch of other different things. And he was also explaining to me about how um, uh, pretty much outsiders, in particular like Europeans, always come over to the continent and they take these resources. And unfortunately, the people of Ghana did not have a system in which they could take these resources and utilize them for themselves, but they were like renting out. It was like a renting out of like even their shores so that others could come and pump for oil. And so it was like it's like being a renter versus an owner. And so I just hope and I just wish that that the spirit and the idea of Wakanda can live and be possessed, on the continent. Because I want to see us all prosper.
yeah.
Okay, well, I have already checked to going to actual Wakanda because I'm here for all that technology. So I'm the real Wakanda. Okay, so I wanted to ask, what are your favorite scenes in the movie?
Ah, so many. I
Yeah.
mean, I love the fight scene in Korea. Uh, just that whole trio dynamic to me was incredible, and then the chase scene in the street was just like, this is what you come for, in a Marvel film, to see that type of action and fast paced storytelling. So that was definitely a favorite of mine.
Kwena?
And then I
Um,
would say a last one is when Killmonger actually came to Wakanda, and he
Uh-huh.
had to face the tribal I guess the board of directors. I don't know what they were called, and he was like, "Hey, Auntie."
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes, that was a great scene.
I I loved all Shuri's scenes were very vibey, were very alive, man. We will make you forget the pain of, because most of the time the film took us a memory lane, down the memory lane. So Shuri's scenes were very funny, and they were very impactful, but they were very lively, and I really really appreciate that. I also loved Killmonger's scene where he came through. He reminded me of so many African acts that we have here at home, where someone will come and say, I belong here. My mom said my dad lives in here, And that time you're like, but dude, who are you? So we have so many scenes like that. So it really, really gotten me to think of how we react to such, because we have a lot of people coming from all over saying we belong here, my dad is from this home, my auntie sent me here. So it was just connecting us to so many moments that we live within here at home. And also my favorite scene was when the three were fighting. You can see that you can't do anything without togetherness. So for
Yes.
me, as like collaborating, helping each other, because alone you can't do it. And it came back to how we do things here in Africa. Also, they got it right, because we have a tribe. You go to a king consult to this, the other one consult to this. So it was beautiful to see that you can't fight alone. You need people to to help you fight. Among, I mean, others that all of them were perfect, man. But also the fight
Oh no, we lost Kwena.
Kwena.
I'm gonna hop in with some of my favorite scenes. One of the scenes that I absolutely loved was during the first transition of power and how they had all of the tribes on the waterfall.
Yes.
I just thought that was so beautiful, just like those aerial shots and how they pulled out. I just thought that was so incredible. And then one of my other favorite scenes was like the fighting towards the end. Did you realize? I only realized the second time I watched it, but that T'Challa took a spear and threw it at the plane, and the plane came down.
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me of Game of Thrones when the Ice King took the javelin and threw it at the dragon.
At the dragon, yeah.
Well, I was like, Game of Thrones vibes. So yeah, I love that scene. Oh, and my last favorite part was during that fighting where the rhino was running towards M'Baku and Okoye jumped in front and the rhino yes, I love that scene. And then when her love was like, "You would kill me," and she's like,
"For Wakanda." Yes,
absolutely. So I love that part. And again, for me, that just spoke to Denai's range in the movie, her range of emotions, and just she kills.
She's great. I love her.
She's amazing. Let's see. I don't know if we're gonna get Kwena back. Send her a little message. But in the meantime, James, can you talk a little? I mean, you talked a bit about the role of women, but as a filmmaker, as a Black filmmaker, what do you think the impact of Black Panther is going to be on the film industry? I just literally saw that it's already passed $700 million worldwide, and it's only been out for 10 days. Yeah. So what is the impact on Hollywood and the impact on the work that you wish to do in the future?
Yeah, for sure. You know, you were talking about you want Denai to win all of the Oscars. You know, I hope that, you know, we've had Oscars so white. I'm hoping that this year Oscars can be Oscars so Black Panther. Like, I really hope that this film and these characters and these filmmakers are celebrated within the industry. And in particular, with this film having, you know, so much diversity in front of the camera and behind the camera, you know, I hope that is reflected in our award shows in the sense of Hollywood really taking the time and the opportunity to celebrate the success of this film, and not only the success that is, you know, done in the box office, but just the overall excellence that this film is. I think it was just named the #1 film on Rotten Tomatoes, like of all time. Like it replaced The Wizard of Oz. That's the #1 film, and so this movie is just breaking down so many barriers. I hope that Hollywood is gonna really take the time to see the buying power of the Black dollar. But you know, the thing is, I kind of feel like this stuff was always known, and that they were choosing still not to tell our stories. They were creating these myths that folks don't want to see a predominantly Black cast, you know, globally. That, you know, it was always this idea that Black films don't sell well internationally, and so they won't give a film with a predominantly Black cast the big budget, like a $200 million, you know, budget like Black Panther got. And I hope that, you know, Black Panther will change that narrative and that we can see more superhero films, because I'm a big fan of just the whole superhero genre. I want to see more Black Panthers, but I think we're starting to see the shift. We have Black Lightning. And I hope we can get a Storm film. I want to see the origin of Storm, because I had no idea that T'Challa and Storm got married in the comic book. Did you know that? I was just reading that because I was reading the history of M'Baku and in the comics, and he apparently shows up to the wedding of T'Challa and Storm and gets into a fight with Spider-Man, like in one of the comics.
Okay, I need to see that. I need to see M'Baku. Spider-Man fight. So.
I need to see this. And so I hope that we see more films in it. I don't know if you've even seen, there's this petition going around on the internet where folks want to see a Game of Thrones style Wakanda. They want a weekly series where we can go into Wakanda, we can go into the origin and the backstory and see this this world on a weekly, type of a series. Okay, and so
later. That's in the works.
Yeah. And so I think just overall, this film came at the perfect time. There was already a resurgence and a Black Renaissance happening in Hollywood. I think the great thing now is Black Panther gives us the receipts. Like we can show up to these meetings with receipts in terms of what our films, what our stories, and what our dollars can do, not only here domestically, but also internationally as well. And then for me as a filmmaker, to answer that second question, honestly, I left that film feeling like I had an even greater responsibility of the type of content, that I'm putting out. I'm currently working on a show right now, a new show, Beyond Giants. And I really started to just think about how I'm presenting and representing our people so that we can all collectively have that reminder that we are kings and that we are queens and that we come from greatness. And so I just hope to continue to reflect just overall Black excellence in my content and not perpetuate a negative image of, of our people.
Okay. So. One last thing, and then we're going to hop to question. I see we have one question.
Okay.
So I obviously am not in the film industry. I don't actually watch a lot of movies. But from my watching of this film, these are the awards that I think it should be nominated for.
Okay.
So absolutely Best Supporting Actress for Denai Guerrera. She has to win all of it. I'm like, she needs the Golden Globe, the Emmy, the set, all of it. Take it all. Costume design also I think should win.
Yes.
Because that is like killer. Set design. Could take it home, but it definitely needs to be nominated. Cinematography. The fight scenes were crazy.
It's also Ryan Coogler's cinema photographer is also a woman.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be incredible. Yep.
Awesome. And then I think for directing, it should get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I support all of that. Yeah.
Yes. So outside of that, are there any other nominations? And not only Oscars,
Best
but
Picture.
Any other nominations?
Yeah, I think it should get a Best Picture nomination. In particular, what this film is doing, like I said, it just became the #1 film on Rotten Tomatoes. Not only what it's doing in the box office, I think this film will be the #1 film in America, this year. And so I think that will definitely warrant a Best Picture nomination. And not only for the accolades that it's receiving, but it's a really great film. Yeah. It's just a great film. It's a great story. It was written well. The performances were great. I think Coogler did an amazing job. Folks are like calling him the young Black Steven Spielberg as a result of this film. Yeah. So give my man a Best Picture nomination on top of Best Director. And I think it could definitely go like side by side with Get Out. For what we're seeing in terms of that Best Picture and also Best Director, nomination.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think he's proven himself. Like Creed, Fruitvale, and like Ryan Coogler.
Can I make one more note? I just saw this and I did not realize the Hollywood Reporter did a story with. There's only been 4 African Americans nominated for Best Director in the 90-year history of the Academy.
90-year, okay.
The 90-year history. No, he wasn't.
Oh, that was the big thing. Well, or no, Michael B. Jordan wasn't nominated either, right? But Sylvester Stallone was. Yeah,
Sylvester Stallone was. I don't think Michael got the nomination or Coogler didn't get the nomination. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's only been...
yeah, we know that he's about to change that then.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that he's added, to that group.
Okay. Okay, so Kwena said that her vibranium powers are cut off. Under Wi-Fi. She's trying to join us again.
Okay.
So I want to jump back and answer a question that we have.
Okay.
So this is on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question from Jackie Harold. And she said, what did you guys think of the soundtrack for the film as it related to the different scenes? I have strong thoughts on the soundtrack. What about you?
I didn't have a problem. I'm a huge Kendrick Lamar fan. I felt like it was fitting. Perhaps we could have had a bit more traditional. But, I think because Wakanda is so futuristic, I think that was the direction that they went in, with the music. We perhaps could have had, more traditional African, types of sounds within the soundtrack. But I don't personally have any type of issues with the soundtrack.
Okay, so I love the soundtrack. That is the only thing I'm really listening to right now. Whether I'm working out, whether I'm driving, I am loving the soundtrack. I think we have Kwena back. So hey Kwena, we're talking about the soundtrack. So I'm gonna give my thoughts and then you can jump in. So as far as the soundtrack, I love it. I think this was an amazing opportunity to bring in some of the continent's top stars, of which there are many. And now I know there are 3 South African artists on the soundtrack, and there was more music in the movie that were from African artists than what made it to the soundtrack. But I feel like, for example, like a Wizkid or a Davido, who are huge stars right now, they're rappers out of Nigeria. I just feel like, and not even necessarily them, but I just feel like there's so many artists you can choose from. Black Coffee, DJ Mariposa. There's just so many people all over the continent. And I feel like it was a bit of a miss. And I agree, like it's very futuristic, but I mean, Africans are making dope music. Nigerians, Ghanaians, like Congolese, South African. So many people are making amazing music. And I feel like they definitely could have brought some of today's top artists from the continent in. So that was a little bit of a miss for me. I don't know what happened to Kwena again. We have another question that I'm going to ask. Amber Woods is asking us, what do up-and-coming directors or producers of color need to do in the wake of the film to support one another and propel each other in the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think support, not only support with your viewership, but also support with your dollars. And so similar to how we showed up for Black Panther, we also have to show up for a small indie film, such as Fruitvale Station. If Fruitvale Station was not the success that it was, Ryan Coogler would not have gotten the opportunity to do Creed and then, Black Panther. So we really have to support, young budding filmmakers when they're making these smaller independent films that, won't have the marketing, power that a Black Panther has. But it's still important that these films do really well in the box office, because that'll determine, if that particular filmmaker gets an opportunity to do A Wrinkle in Time like Ava has. But if we had not showed up and supported I Will Follow,
Selma.
Yeah, or Selma, these filmmakers would not have gotten that opportunity. And so we have to show up to the box office, but in addition, we have to support our filmmakers who are doing really great work on the digital space. And so there are a lot of web series and digital content that, we could support simply by tweeting or sharing to Facebook or by word of mouth by telling a friend. And so I think we just have to be really vocal overall, vocal, and definitely, put in our dollars, behind these projects.
That was amazing. Kwena, do you have any thoughts on the soundtrack?
Uh-oh, she's frozen again.
Frozen again. What happened? I saw her moving for a minute, but we lost her again. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have another question, and then we are probably going to wrap this up.
Okay.
Hold on, where'd the question go? Kwena's still frozen. Okay, what types of stories need to be told from our community? we see a lot of the slavery stories, but where should film industry color creatives be drawing inspiration?
What do you think? I would say our everyday lives.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think our everyday lives, and I think it's about who are the filmmakers. So, like for me, I read a lot, and I remember how excited I was when the book Americana came out by Chimamanda.
Did you hear? Did you hear the news?
Yes, I think Lupita picked up the rights to that book. So
And you know who she's doing it with, right?
no.
Deny. Yes.
How can I get cast? I'm like, can I be an extra, please? Somebody.
You need to go on a campaign.
I know. I'm gonna. Oh, maybe I'll do that. A social campaign to get me cast in Americana. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I want to. I can be a friend. I can be the sidekick.
Somebody.
Whatever.
You could be somebody. You could be in the beauty salon when she's getting her hair braided.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
That is the campaign. When she's in that aesthetically hair braiding style, I'm gonna be the girl who's just sitting over there on my phone.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God, James, that's perfect. All right. Yeah. You guys, we're gonna come up with a whole social. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I really think that it's about telling our stories and it's about representation. So for me, again, as an African in the diaspora, like I'm super excited to hear people tell these stories. I mean, I'm working on some books and I would love in the future to like work on somehow figuring out how to tell more of my story. Because there's so many people who have stories that are similar to me. I'm super excited about Americana now. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think telling our everyday stories. I think, sometimes there's this idea that we have to be in a certain niche in order to be successful. As African American filmmakers, we get a lot of romance and relationship, type of stories, which is cool, which is great. I think showing our everyday lives, similar to Insecure or in Atlanta, or even a Queen Sugar, is really great because it shows the nuances of our experience and how we can be very different. But I think also allowing us to venture out into the genre of like sci-fi and like we saw with Black Panther, more fantasy, because we don't often get those stories or, from Black filmmakers like horror films. And so perhaps we just have to open up and be more adventurous with the type of content that we're going to see. But yeah, we have so many great stories. And even I would also love to see more of our history outside of the slave trade or outside of us being slaves. And so I've heard that Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan also want to work on a film about African kings and, showing us. Showing us, showing and telling our story before the Atlantic slave trade will also be really, really incredible. We need another, what was that film? King and Gods or Exodus, or I forget the name of the film, but they casted like all white guys in the film. It was based in Egypt. We need to retell that story with the proper melanated characters.
Kwena, are you there?
Hey, Kwena. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Did you see my message? I think I'm kicked out of Wakanda.
Yeah, we told
So, you and R. Kelly.
So we would love to hear your thoughts on two things, and then we're going to wrap. If you have thoughts on the soundtrack and what types of stories need to be told from our community. We see a lot of the slavery stories, but where should the film industry color creatives be drawing inspiration?
I mean, on the soundtrack, I don't have a problem with Kendrick Lamar because he quite did some good music before the film. So big up for that. But I feel like they just the opportunity that is doing very, very well. For me, I actually wanted, or I could have loved to see the legendary actually telling, because we have those tracks that tells the stories. that they are in the film. So for me, I'm not saying I'm against everyone that is in there soundtrack wise, but I would really would have loved to see our people that actually fought for struggle, actually made those music on the real stories that are in that film. Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointed Matt for me, but hey, man, they can't please all of us. I mean, they can't really please all of us. But I feel like they played themselves when coming to soundtrack, because we have deep, rich, beautiful music in Africa. We've got Fela Kuti's. I mean, we have Mariam Makeba. We have Yuma Sekela, who fought so much for those stories to come alive today, and none of their music was played. I mean, we have people like the King John Kani, who's when they were playing, maybe I feel like when they were playing his scenes, they could have played some of the music when he was still young, like his time, like just resonate the music with his line. For me, I feel like they just didn't play that well, but otherwise, yeah, the music that is there, it's surprising. It's surprising, but in a good way. It's just weird. It's weird. It's like wow. There's babes what do wow, okay. It's what can't expect anything, anytime. But I was a bit disappointed when coming to soundtrack. And then when coming to stories, oh my God, I'm asking, like I'm praying in tongues. I'm just like praying you guys include our own people in the stories that you want to tell. I'm just like, we have the most amazing actors. I know numbers sells, I know this and this, but I mean, let's let's source of the story, find the source, use the source. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So thank you guys so much for joining me. We're gonna wrap, but before we do, I just want to have each of you tell people where they can find you. If you have any projects that you're working on right now that people can support, please share them. Kwena, we'll start with you.
Um, I'm hoping I want to be like Jessica when I grow up. So I want to visit all 50, I want to visit all of my continents, because, like I said, Wakanda is a wake up call for everyone, for all of us. Because yes, we have quite a couple of groups that we're discussing the movie, and we all need to get more knowledge of our people, our heritage, our culture. We don't know it all, but we can try. We can try to find out. So I'll be in Mozambique maybe next month, and I'm gonna be in Ghana soon. But find me on Instagram at Kwena Says. And if you wanna tell your story, you don't know how, I'm over here, I'll help you tell your story. I'll help you narrate your story. And James, if you want to come through, I'm here, I'll fund the culture,
For sure.
And and also being style therapist, about getting people know themselves better, getting people connecting to themselves and their identity before they find style, because style comes from within. Style comes with confidence. Style comes with who you are, and if you don't know any of those, and you're not connected to your confidence, you don't even have any, I'm here, and I'm about to just break it down to you, help connect, and just, yeah, get you to Wakanda, man. I know everyone in the office. Just holler at your girl. I'm here. Yeah.
Dope.
I love her. If you guys aren't following Kwena, I became familiar with her page last year during PT Uomo. Her style is like killer. So definitely follow her page, because I'm just like, when are you gonna dress me?
When you come back home, baby. When you visit home. When you visit home.
I'll see you.
I love it. Definitely. Kwena, I've never been to Kenya, so I would love to come. Would love to come.
I'm here visiting, by the way.
Okay.
I'm in exile. I'm in exile right now in Kenya. I'm in exile. So I'm South African. You have to come to South Africa.
Okay, I'll come back to South Africa. I love South Africa. So it's on the list. You know, it was funny. So as I transition into where you can find me, I'm actually working on setting up a screening of my series Giants in South Africa. Sometime this year, a friend of mine who is in South Africa now told me that he ran into some folks who told him that they were fans of the show. And he was like, you should come do a screening. And I'm like, will you help me set it up? And so I think collectively, perhaps it could be a Catch Me If You Can, hosted by Kwena, screening, you know, in Joburg. So
we can make that happen. That's already done. We can. That's easy.
Well, boom. Well, you can find me on social media at JR Bland. In terms of projects that I'm working on right now, I have a digital series titled Giants. The second season is now streaming on Issa Rae's YouTube channel. New episodes are released every Wednesday. So check it out.
And if you have not seen season 1, just go ahead and go back to season 1 before you start season 2. You have time to do that before Wednesday. The series shows on Issa Rae's channel. It's amazing. I mean, the quality is, you know, HBO quality. So definitely check that out.
Thank you.
I think I might make an appearance in this season.
Yes.
And for me, you can find me at the Catch Me If You Can. I am just out here traveling the world, trying to write about it, and just trying to show people that we can travel to anywhere that we want to travel to, but we should spend most of our time on the African continent. So thank you guys so much for joining me. This was amazing. It was our first time doing this, and I think this is awesome, and I would love to do it again. So I hope you guys enjoyed us. This will be posted here. So thank you so much, and happy Sunday.
Thank you so
much. Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever. Okay. Bye, guys.